Hey guys, Angus from Spotted Hog Airsoft here today with another Airsoft video review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the AEG currently in my hands. This is the Elite Force 4CRL, which out of the two styles of this AEG is the slightly longer full-stocked model. Now Elite Force was kind enough to send this gun out to me directly, but if you're looking at it on Airsoft retail sites, expect to pay somewhere in the $350 to $400 range. This is a rather nice quality airsoft gun, so expect the higher price tag, and with that being said, let's go ahead and hop directly into this video review. Alright, now jumping straight into this video review, let's start off by covering this AEG's externals. Now overall externally this gun is incredibly solid. That's because we get a lot of metal on this gun. When it comes down to plastic pieces, there are only really three important ones, and those would include your included 300 round high cap magazine, the pistol grip, as well as the weapon stock. These are all constructed of a rather solid quality plastic. They don't feel cheap in any way. The magazine's a little wobbly, but otherwise it all feels rather solid, those plastic pieces. When it comes to metal, your outer barrel's constructed metal, as is your flash hider, both of your iron sights, your upper and lower receiver, this RAS handguard, as well as all your extremities, including your bolt catch, your fire selector switch, etc. So overall, you get a good amount of metal on this gun, probably a bit more than plastic when it comes down to it, but the weight certainly isn't too bad. This thing probably weighs in anywhere from 5 to 7 pounds, and it feels pretty evenly distributed, especially with the lighter metal up front via that rail system. Another quick external note that's pretty nice would be a very nice painted on trademark located on the left side of the gun's lower receiver. Just the Elite Force logo and 4CRL, but it does look pretty nice in bright white paint. Overall, externals are rather solid, and it's a nice gun. When it comes to internals, I do believe this gun is OEM'd by VFC, but don't quote me on that. A lot of the guys I play with in the airsoft field, they swear by VFC internals, and these guns' internals certainly are great. You do get a metal version 2 gearbox inside here, but we'll talk a little bit more about performance aspects later when we actually test this gun out. However, VFC internals, they're typically pretty solid, and that's exactly what we get out of this gun. Now moving onward to features, let's start off with the most important one on an electric gun in my opinion, and that would be battery space. Now since the 4CRL is the full stocked model of this AEG, obviously that's where a battery is held. I'm a huge fan of full stocks because you can fit a large battery in there and really crank this gun up with a high voltage, large output battery. In this case, the battery compartment is incredibly easy to access, as is the case with most full stocks. You'd simply flip down this piece here, which is an incredibly simple mechanism. It's just a little bit hard to do in cold weather with thick gloves, hence why I did it before I started filming. And at that point, you will reveal your small type connector. Inside, battery space is pretty plentiful, so you can easily store a large battery inside. This AEG's fire selector switch is not ambidextrous and is located only on the left side of the gun. It's your standard M4 style selector with the standard 3 settings: safe, semi, and auto. Each of the settings is painted on a nice bright white paint rather nicely, and it's basic selector switch, really nothing to complain about. Doesn't slip between settings and does require a little bit of force to move, so it won't be wiggling on its own. Good quality selector. Alright, now moving onward in features to this gun's magazine. Ejection is very simple. Simply push in on the standard M4 style mag release located on the right side of the gun, and the mag will drop out. Now your included magazine is a standard 300 round high capacity M4 magazine. As I mentioned earlier, this thing is constructed of plastic. It's a bit of a cheaper quality plastic than the rest of the gun. As you can see, I dropped it a little bit earlier and there's even a small little dent in the side of it. It works like any other high cap. You'd fill it up via the trapdoor at the top, BBs would feed through the top, and obviously you would wind via the gear down at the bottom. Basically, it's just your standard M4 high cap. It feeds alright in your gun. I'm a preferrer of mid caps, however. Now my preference is set aside. When you go ahead to reinsert this high cap, you'd put it in like any other M4 magazine. Make sure you hear that locking click sound to let you know it's actually in and not going to drop out. When it's in the mag well, there's a little bit of wobble, but really nothing to complain about. And hey, the biggest advantage of this M4 style AEG is the fact that it can take M4 magazines, which are pretty abundant on airsoft fields nowadays. Now the 4CRL's iron sights are flip up, currently flip down. If you were to actually flip them up, this is what they would look like. Now the gun's rear sight is just a rather tall open hole sight aperture that is adjustable for windage via this dial on the side. It is meant to line up with your front sight, which in turn is an enclosed sight post that is adjustable for elevation. Overall, the iron sights in this gun are pretty accurate to it and they do get the job done. However, it seems like we're overlooking kind of a big thing about the 4CRL. And that would be this gun's rather long top rail in conjunction with its RAS handguard. Overall, I do love these customizable features on this M4 because, like I stated, you can customize it. You can make this gun just not another M4. You can do what you want to it. You have that big top rail to make use of a nice optic. You get the side rails for, say, a flashlight or a laser, and you do have a pretty long bottom rail for either a foregrip, probably more practical, or say a stubby grenade launcher if you did want to try that out on the bottom. Overall, customization, always a plus in my opinion, so naturally I do love the RAS handguard on this M4. Now the 4CRL's charging handle does have a function. If I were to pull it back, as you can see, dust cover would drop down, revealing your hop-up unit and also activating your functional bolt catch. Now zooming in on your actual hop-up unit is that rather large black gear located inside there. It is pretty large, that's pretty convenient because let's say it is colder weather out like it is now, I've got bigger gloves on, I can still be able to fit my figure in there in order to adjust my hop-up. How effective is this hop-up though? Well, we're about to put that to the test in our performance test portion of the video. But let's say you finished adjusting your hop-up, how do you shut that bolt catch? Well, you would go ahead and give this button a push, and at that point, the dust cover would snap shut. And after that kind of disappointing clack there when I hit the bolt release, I think we're all pretty hyped up for an exciting performance test. So with that being said, let's go ahead, head over to another area of the field, not only chrono, but also take a few shots at a target with this AEG and see how it performs. So let's get going. For the chrono portion of the video, I loaded up the magazine with 0.2 gram BBs and also installed an 11.1 volt LiPo just to test out in these colder conditions. From what we saw with the FPS portion of the video, we saw about 390 to 395 feet per second rather consistently. I certainly did have to wind the mag quite a bit after each semi-auto shot though, a little bit annoying. When it came to rate of fire, with the 11.1 volt LiPo, we obviously saw an incredibly high rate of fire of about 1,200 rounds per minute, and as you can see later, that'll convert into about 20 rounds per second. So off an 11.1 volt LiPo, we're seeing exactly what we'd expect, a much higher rate of fire. Probably on a standard 9.6, you'd maybe see 14, 15 rounds per minute, rounds per second, which really necessarily wouldn't be too bad either. So overall, good rate of fire, especially on that 11.1 LiPo. For the accuracy test portion of the video, we took aim at our classic lawn chair target from about 120 feet away, loaded up with 0.25 gram BBs, kept that original 11.1 volt LiPo used for the chrono, and adjusted our hop-up. Semi-automatically saw a little bit more sporadic accuracy. I noticed that kind of at the beginning, every other shot, one would hit the target, one would drop quite a bit short of the target. So that was a little weird. Kind of funky hop-up on semi-auto, but towards the end, kind of cleared out a little bit and the BBs became a little bit straighter. A little bit sporadic though. Full auto, really no sporadic anything. All those BBs came directly into contact with the target. Excellent accuracy on full auto, especially with that LiPo. Using one of those, I'm certainly firing on full auto. So the accuracy, besides a little bit of issues on semi, was pretty good overall. Alright, so with those final shots being fired, we can go ahead and hop into the final conclusion of this video review. Overall, bottom line, I did like the Elite Force 4CRL quite a bit. However, there were three things I didn't necessarily care for. One I can live with, and that's the fact that this piece on the stock of the weapon here that you'd actually open up to access your battery compartment is a little bit of a pain, especially in the colder weather. Aside from the first time, I did have to use a knife each time I wanted to remove the battery to prop that thing open because it was just almost impossible with my very cold fingers. So that was a little bit annoying that it's so tight in the back. Otherwise, the hop-up I found wasn't that great, which is kind of typical of M4s. Semi-automatic, we saw a lot of sporadicness, and off-camera I had a couple double feeds, a lot of just suddenly dropping out of the barrel, stuff like that. You know, the accuracy on semi was okay in the shooting test, but the hop-up overall was, you know, not exactly the greatest thing in the world, but, you know, typical of an M4. The thing I hated the most probably was this high cap. Like I said, it's made of a cheaper plastic, dented when I dropped it slightly earlier, and also the fact that if you watch the chrono, I had to wind this thing constantly, every single shot. So if you're in a game and you're not winding this the whole time, there's a chance you could just be shooting a few shots on semi, and the next thing you know, you're out of BBs because you're not paying attention to the magazine. So this thing requires constant winding. My recommendation, when you first get the gun, make sure you clean out that outer barrel, maybe get rid of some of those chances for hop-up issues, and also get yourself some mid caps or a nice big old fat mag high cap or something like that, because this one sucks. Otherwise though, I did enjoy the gun. It's built solidly, large battery compartment, I like that. M4 magazine compatibility is huge, and also you do have the customization options. Plus, performance-wise, if you're looking for a nice woodland field M4 style AEG, you got 400 FPS coming out of this thing, and on an 11.1 volt LiPo, a pretty high rate of fire as expected, and an excellent accuracy rate on that full auto function. So overall, the performance of the AEG wasn't necessarily bad. A couple things with the hop up that you probably want to clean up right away with a quick swab of the inner barrel, and just replace the mag. I think you got a customizable solid M4 here. So with that being said, guys, this has been Spotted Hog Airsoft's review of the Elite Force 4CRL. It's a solid gun, I just hate that high cap.